Hello and welcome to another episode of Podcast of the Rings. This week we're kicking off our 700 episode series on Peter Jackson's The Hobbit. This is part one of 50 about the first movie, and then we'll continue going from there. We also have, I'm always joined by Alex, and that's not exciting, but we have a special guest, Alex.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, okay, that's what I'm saying. You're not exciting, but our guest is exciting.
No, 100%.
Welcome, Ben Goddard. I'm going to pipe in some applause here.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm very excited to have Alex here and you here as well, Jess. So I'm very excited to talk about these beautiful but flawed movies. But I can't wait. I'm so glad we're doing like 2 parts for each movie so we can just like talk about it all, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
There's so much to talk about, and you didn't even know that this was the first time I had seen these.
I didn't.
Which is fine. Like, so one thing I love about us having started this podcast is the true Tolkien fans coming out of the woodwork, like yourself. You're like, oh, I'm a crazy freak for Tolkien. It's almost like you guys didn't have the permission to come out recently about it until like Rings of Power or something was out there, because you guys haven't had new franchise stuff in a while.
It's been a minute. Like, you know, I feel like it's not quite as bad as, you know, like Star Wars fans were waiting since Return of the Jedi or waiting since the prequels for Force Awakens or something, but it was a long time in between, and that's like where my first like note is about the movie, and we'll get into it. Just like these Hobbit movies, I was like, I'm so ready to get back into Middle Earth. I'm so ready for it. Give me it. You know, I didn't think, even from the beginning, I was like, how are they going to do a 150-page book as a trilogy? But I didn't care, because I was like, that more the merrier. Give it all to me. And then you know, I regretted that statement. We'll get to there in 6 weeks or so.
Yeah,
but
it's a monkey's paw situation.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you
watch
wish for.
this. Are you sure? But
Yeah.
So like Rings of Power is that too. You can choose to hate that it's like fan fiction or it's not canonical 100%, or you could just be really excited that it's beautiful and you're getting to know something and love something deeper. Speaking of Rings of Power,
oh my gosh, the news.
Here's what my theory is. No one could tell you the name of the actor who played Adar, and
Joseph Mawle.
now everyone knows his name.
Yeah.
And
I
for
feel
those who don't know, the news is that Joseph Mawle, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he posted on Twitter that he is leaving the series. We don't know exactly how that departure happened. I don't think. Was he fired? Did he leave of his own volition? Was it creative differences? Who knows? It's all
Whose
speculation.
butt did he touch? That's total hearsay.
Oh no.
It's total hearsay.
Let's hope it's not
no, but I do think there was some sort of thing that we'll never know that they disagreed on, or there was some sort of creative direction that Joseph didn't want to go in, or what have you, right? Or like co-star that was cast that he was like, I don't want to work with that person. And it's not all on him. All I mean is like some sort of negotiation broke down in order for someone to walk away from that role. But they're handling it with a lot of class, because they didn't like mention it, like he didn't like blow it up with the Molotov cocktail. He waited until the same time, probably contractually, to mention that he was leaving at the same time 8 new characters, including his replacement, was being announced.
It's so crazy, because especially like just like even listening to your guys' podcast saying, you know, and I wholeheartedly disagree that he gave like, like character to orcs. Like you can't just look at them as like just evil creatures. You can. They're just evil creatures.
Hey, you're
maybe not as like,
disagree.
Maybe not as just like cannon fodder. Like, you know, they're sentient beings for sure. And, you know, kind of like bringing up Star Wars again, it's like how droids are, where it's like you guys treat droids as like these servants, but like they've been shown to have feelings and
or even
passions.
Stormtroopers, like what they did with Finn, where they're giving a face to the Stormtroopers. So.
And then like, and he was easily the standout for the show where it's just like that was kind of like the first like, okay, who is this guy? Is he Sauron? You know, is anyone Sauron, Mephisto, whatever you want to say? But
the roach is Mephisto.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, what kind of contractual obligations? Like, did he want more money? Like, was it a story beat that he just didn't agree with? Because like, that's such a big blow. Because that was everyone looking forward to Sauron meeting back up with Adar, like, you know, like, how, like, do I know you? Like, do you not remember me? Like, something like that was such a good scene. And then, you know, seeing Sauron enter back into Mordor was just like, okay, this is going to be such a cool meetup, and now we're never going to get to see it, which is so unfortunate.
Especially because I saw a lot of people congratulate him as like a quiet villain. He really had like gave some of the deliveries I've never seen anyone do before. And I think you listened to the episode where Anthony Crumb was on, and he was talking about like Joseph runs for like 6 miles and then does his role, and you could like kind of tell that he's that kind of method dude, you know. Not that this new actor won't be great, and not that replacements haven't worked in the past. It's just a different vibe, and
that makes me think. That makes me think that it probably was something to do with creative differences. If he's that invested in his craft and he cares about the art of what he's doing, and that kind of someone with that kind of temperament, I can see looking at what they were going to do with his character in the next season and going, I don't know if I want to be a part of this.
I really wonder if he just got offered a lot of money to do another show or like a movie.
It's possible. Like I've been watching West Wing, and, you know, so many people, like, you know, everybody and their mother was a guest star in West Wing. It's like West Wing and Law and Order, like anybody who's anybody was like a guest star in that. And one of them, I was like, oh, I really liked her. Like, why didn't she show up? And then I looked it up on IMDb, and she got cast in CSI Miami. And then, you know, that ran for, you know, 1 billion seasons. And then it was so funny, another person who played one of the bodyguards, one of the Secret Service agents, she got replaced. And I was like, why? Oh, she's also the CSI person. Like 2 people that were like major, like female characters on West Wing that everyone loved went to go get played in CSI.
They just scooped all the talent.
Yeah, exactly.
What a weird jump, too. You're talking about like beyond intellectual Alan Sorkin, like literature, and then like he was dead. His bones were rotted because of sewage. I
mean, say what you want, but there was a summer in college where on FX, if I saw the cold open of a CSI, I was going to sit for that hour with commercials and watch that whole thing, man. CSI, the like original Las Vegas, goated like primetime Thursday night show. Yeah, Las Vegas was original, then Miami, then New York.
Wow. I'm not saying, listen, I love the trash that is Grey's Anatomy. It has become nothing but procedural soap opera.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not above that. I just really think you have to get a larger contract if that's the case. I actually am, now that we talked about him being such a dedicated actor, it does make me afraid that he actually was unhappy with creative differences.
It's possible.
Because there's rumors that the showrunners are getting diminished, and it's possible. It still seems like inclusion's at the forefront of their agenda, which I think is a positive thing, because a lot of the major cast, a lot of the new cast is still diverse, right? Mm-hmm. But I would be interested to know if there were moral implications or storytelling changes that shifted his opinion. Anyway,
it's possible.
We'll never know.
What's his name? Paul Schneider, I think. If you guys have watched Parks and Rec, Mark Brandanowitz. Like, I mean, is
that the season 1 guy?
Season 1 and 2, and then, you know, like, he doesn't continue after that. And Adam, I can never remember his last. Adam Scott is like kind of his replacement. Yeah, and so like I've read on IMDb, I was like, what happened to him? Because like when I bring him up, people are like, oh yeah, him. And like he even said himself, he's just like, I just don't fit in with this show. Like I just like, you know, he was kind of the original Jim of the show, and it just like didn't gel. And he even admitted it. And they invited him back for the finale to be a part of like the finale. And he was like, no, it's okay. Like I appreciate it. Like he wasn't mad or salty or anything. He was just like, I appreciate it. It's just not my thing. Like I'm so happy for you guys. Like I wish nothing but the best for them. I'm glad I got to be, you know, the stepping stone, like help them out in that season 2, because season 1 is rough.
Right.
But yeah, it's just people do like, it's not always about money. People like are like artists, and if like a guy like him, where he's running 6 miles to get that sweat pale look just for, a 10-second stare off into the middle distance scene. Like, yeah, he's that kind of guy.
And the breathy, like, oh, I don't
yeah.
know you. I think that's going to be the canon for me. I think we'll never know. I think that's just how Hollywood is, or something will happen and it's not surprising. I guess I just don't love that this gives a little bit more credence to people that don't like this show or think that there's problems with it.
Yeah.
We can't control that either.
People are gonna find any reason to tear it down if they want, if that's their agenda. So if it wasn't gonna be this news, it would be some other news,
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, this news took all the air of the room. I think next week, before we get launched into part 2 of part 1 of the movie, we could look at all the new actors and make guesses as to who we think they're going to be cast as.
Ooh, that'd be
I
great.
like that.
We should, because I'm not prepared to do that now, but I saw a lot of people having fun with that on the internet, simultaneously mourning the loss of Adar.
Yeah. Tough loss for sure.
Tough loss.
Daddy.
So, what? Did you just say daddy?
Yeah, he's daddy.
Daddy. He is daddy. I would let him be daddy. And that's just it. Like, you're totally right, Ben. It's not like the orcs are all of a sudden okay, but I do think that they became even worse because they were demonized, because they were corrupted. Like, I think just seeing that they were made evil. We put them. They don't have a home because they're evil. Like, you can almost make they're an enemy of your own making, kind of. I mean, Morgoth made them enemies, but. Not a lot of consent went into being a corrupted elf, if you look at it that way.
Well, that's the thing is that, like, you look at all the MCU stuff, like a big thing is like, oh, they're always going up against these faceless armies that like they can just dispatch without any moral qualms. And it's like Adar gave these guys a face, and they gave them a motivation of like, orcs are still like inherently evil creatures, and how they go about these things are evil, but they have a reason for doing them. Whether you agree with that reason is up to you, but like he gave them a face, so it's not just always, and we'll go into, maybe that'll be part 2, but just like when they're just like slaying like scores of goblins in this movie, and it's just like, oh, okay, they're just all just dying and dying and dying and dying. So yeah.
Honest to God, I'm so glad we don't have to talk about the Goblin King until next week. I'm so upset. There's so much. This movie was so upset. I was like really ready to be like, this is actually great. Oh, but before we get into it, we're gonna continue our tradition, not do it at the back end, because I didn't forget this time. We're going to pull a tarot card. And Ben, since you're our guest, what I'm gonna do is just spread them out, and when you say stop, that's gonna be the card that we get. Okay. So we're gonna start now.
Let's stop.
All right. We have a card, folks. And the card is oh my God, it looks like Adar, the Knight of Rings. Alex, why don't you describe that while I get...
Oh yeah, it is very Adar-like. It's very defined features, long black hair, a figure riding on a horse with a shield sort of turned to one side so you see the shield. Definitely could be maybe an Adar pre-corruption by Morgoth.
Weird.
Very possible.
It's Faramir.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's really strange.
That is strange.
I mean, this is a very interpretive deck, and the style is very interesting. But I would not have guessed Faramir. But he is on a... I don't know that... I was going to say he is on a horse. He's not a Rohirrim. Good night. So upright, this is our card for today. This knight rides into your reading with a command.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Pursue your mark with kindness. No, we're going to not be kind about this movie. Just as Faramir led with a compassionate heart, you are being advised to move through your quest by taking the high road. Ooh. Be fair, even if others are not, and make choices in line with your personal ethics. Don't compromise who you are for what you want. So what we want is fame and listens. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to just poop all over this movie.
Give the people what they want, right?
Don't worry, listeners. I am here to heartily defend this movie.
Sure. Again, the hot takes. So we are going to, if you're going to watch along with us, we are talking all the way up to the entrance to Rivendell, and then we were going to stop and do the remainder next week. So, Peter Jackson's The Hobbit.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So, when you are okay, here's where I'll start. Did you see this movie in theaters, Ben?
Of course.
Oh, of course.
Twice.
Okay.
High frame rate?
I didn't see the high frame rate.
Oh, I saw it in high frame rate when it was in theaters. It's
loser.
Yes. The first 2 minutes of seeing it, it's very jarring because, for those who don't know, they filmed this at 48 frames a second in 3D with 2 red cameras, one for each eye. So when they played it back in 3D, it was designed to be viewed in 3D. And so it wasn't that sort of cheesy effect where it's like, oh, stuff is coming out at you. It was more natural 3D to just be immersive. But the 48 frames a second looks bizarre because it's so smooth. But I enjoyed it. After about 2 or 3 minutes, you get used to it, and it looks amazing. I wish there were some showings that they would do where they played it.
Same, because I've never been a person, and I'm not dissing anybody, but when people would go to the ArcLight and be like, oh, I saw this in 70 millimeter. I can't tell the difference. I'm sorry. I'll go to, the dollar theater. I can tell projection quality because I've seen some poorly projected movies. But I can't tell the difference between digital or 70 millimeter or I know what aspect ratio is, but it doesn't make a huge difference for me.
It does emotionally, whether you realize it or not. When you see certain movies, I want to say Death Proof does it, but maybe not even Death Proof, where you know who did it really interestingly? WandaVision would do it. They would go from 16:9 into the television.
Yeah.
Aspect ratio, and that would be really good to denote whether we were in the TV world or out of it. And so it was good for the emotional shift on that. And I wonder if maybe the projection wasn't bad, but the film that you saw, the quality was poor, because that's usually what leads to a framey, grainy situation. Is if so usually I got to see Vertigo in 70 mil, and I had no idea either. So I
saw Lawrence of Arabia. And I knew it was 70 millimeter just because that's the only way to be projected, because it's a classic movie like that, and it was beautiful. And I was like, this is amazing. But when I go see the laser at the AMC or the Dolby, it's better sound, but I enjoy it. And anybody that can tell the difference, I'm very jealous of you. But yeah, the Lighthouse was a 4:3 aspect ratio in theaters, and that was really cool to see and it had the grainy effect to it, and I was like, oh, this is nice.
The first time I've seen 3D actually work in the modern sense of how we understand 3D is at our friend Hector Navarro's house. He has a 3D TV and buys 3D discs.
Yeah, and he is the 3D warrior. He is.
They will only exist because of him if they continue to be made. And it is worth it. The experience is not, oh, look, everything's popping out at you. It is a deeper experience. It's more like you're looking into the fish tank as opposed to a flat fish tank.
Yeah, just
kind of how
it enhances your immersion into the movie.
Yeah, I saw the re-release because I couldn't remember seeing Avatar in theaters. I saw it 1,000 times on TV, so I knew I'd seen it, but I was like, I don't remember being crazy about this movie. And then the re-release, I saw it in IMAX 3D, and I was like, this movie kind of rips.
Yeah.
Is the story, the same old thing, Dance with Wolves, Pocahontas, Ferngully? It is. But James Cameron does a great job of getting you to buy into unobtainium. That's a word they use.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
It's so dumb. And that's the thing, is that people, saying,
Giovanni Ribisi is buying it too. You know
everyone's buying it. Sigourney Weaver chain smoking as a scientist. You learn what Pandora is. You learn who the Na'vi are. You are on board within 10 minutes. Stephen Lang just like eating all the ham in every scene. I love it. He's got the big old scar on his face, and he's bench pressing when you meet him. He's so great.
Everyone had to do work to compensate for the poor acting of that lead actor, who I don't think ever did anything ever again.
I will, I don't want to say I'll defend Sam Worthington, but, Matt Damon famously turned down that role and 10% of the box office. Because all the money was going to the movie, so James Cameron was like, I'll give you 10, I can't pay you, but I'll give you 10% of the box office. Matt Damon turned down $300 million basically. Wow. And it's the most famous miss of all time. But I kind of like Sam Worthington in that role because you're so focused on the world where I'd be focused on Matt Damon that whole movie.
Totally.
Matt Damon in Avatar. I like Sam Worthington being a no name.
Yeah, he
same with everything
into the role.
He does.
Yeah.
And he's worked steadily. He was just in that Andrew Garfield Mormon show. I can't think of what it's called. He's good. He's solid.
Banner of Heaven.
Under the Banner of Heaven. Good pull. Yeah. Good pull.
Because I only know that because that's Andrew Garfield isn't going to do work for a long time after this, and I don't know why, but good for him. He's pulling away.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I was actually just talking to our mutual friend Scott Rubin about Arondir from Rings of Power. He is fit. He sells the action. He's good looking. He looks like an elf, and he's just bad enough of an actor where it works. He's not an amazing actor, but he sure knows how to take his time with his furrow. He has a perfectly placed furrow in his brow, and he just needs to look serious and then look lovingly. He's not going to give you nuance, but he gives you absolutely everything you need to make it a perfect performance, in my opinion.
And he doesn't oversell stuff. You know what I mean?
He can't.
Yeah,
because he's not good enough.
But exactly. But I think what we've talked about with Morvith Clark and Charlie Vickers is they
push it.
They're good enough to where sometimes they go for the thing and it's too much.
Yeah,
and you're
totally.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
that choice.
Fair. Well, there's so much in this movie that we haven't even talked about it, and we're 20 minutes into. I'm not going to time keep. I'm just saying. This is already exciting.
This is why we're doing it in 2 parts for each movie.
That's correct. That's exactly right. So here's my question, and maybe it'll get answered because, again, bear in mind, I've never seen this film ever, either of them. Who drew that picture of him? Who drew the picture of
portrait?
Bilbo? Yeah.
That is
someone in the Shire?
Here's my guess.
Is that a thing?
Someone in Rivendell. I would imagine that when they were on their return journey, and they were in Rivendell, one of the elf artists gave him that as a gift or something.
I don't know. There's a picture of his, his great-great-grandfather Bull Roarer Took in his living room. So I'm sure there's.
Is there?
They have nothing but time in the Shire. You don't think there's 1,000 artists in that place? That's all the Shire is farmers and artists. That's it.
Are there artists there though? Canonically? I'm not saying I'm not trying to nitpick. I'm just saying, are they too tired to do artistry?
Why would they be tired?
I
don't know. I'd be tired with a lot of food and But I also thought it was distinctly funny. I don't know why I was surprised that Elijah Wood be there, but I was beyond flabbergasted.
Yeah, you were definitely shocked when he appeared on screen.
He does just walk in and almost give a wink. It's borderline wink to the camera where he's just and I'm glad they gave him lines. I say in my notes, I'm kind of torn of how close this opening scene takes place to the beginning of Fellowship.
Totally.
Where he's literally waiting for Gandalf in the woods.
Hours before.
Literally hours before. But I'm glad it wasn't and here's Frodo. He actually has a reason. He's checking the mail. He's going to wait for Gandalf. If it was just hey, all right, anyways, there's someone you know.
But I do have a question about that. So he's I'm going to go surprise him. No one's sure that Gandalf is coming because he was supposed to be there a week sooner than that, right? I mean, isn't that the line of a wizard is never late or early? He arrives exactly when he means to. Isn't he proclaimed as being late?
Yeah.
But we don't know how long Frodo is waiting in the woods.
Minutes.
Well, he says he's going to the woods to surprise Gandalf,
You think
and
he's
then
waiting there for a week. It's the day of his birthday.
Maybe he's there for
Alex.
4 hours. Maybe this is 9 in the morning, and then Gandalf shows up at 2 p.m. and he's like, "Dude, you're late."
He leaves and he's so sure that Gandalf's going to be there, and and my illusion was destroyed. My immersion was destroyed.
This is the hill you're going to die on with this movie.
Right? I just think you're underestimating how little people have to do in the Shire. Like, this is a literal, like, it's called the Shire. Like, it's a synonym for, like, a haven. Like, they do nothing there, Jess. They calmly till the earth. They smoke weed all day. There's like one barmaid that like never gets harassed by anybody and like
Hard to believe.
And so it's just like it's
She's
the
also
perfect place.
Hobbit ever too.
Yeah, that's why no one messes with her, because she'll just beat the crap out of him.
Oh, yeah.
So true. Well, so I was kind of going into this whole thing. Oh, the other thing I think is funny is how let me start a Hobbit hole isn't messy nor and he's writing this to Frodo. Frodo knows what a Hobbit hole is.
Well, no, he's writing his book. It's not necessarily to Frodo.
Yeah, he's not writing it for Frodo.
He says that he's writing the whole impetus of the movie is that Frodo, you do not know everything. Let me tell you now. And then he says, but here's where a story starts. And then he goes, I think
that's an allusion to we're not going to talk about it this episode, but the riddle game. Because as we talked about on our previous Hobbit episode, the account he had told everybody was not true about that. So I think that's an allusion to that part of the story, but he's writing this as his like memoir, kind of as his
and
book.
that's the Tolkien, like that's a line from the book. Like when I talk about a hole, I don't mean like a worm filled dirt. Like,
that I know, but if he is writing it to hobo then he doesn't need to explain whether a Hobbit hole has worm in it or not. That's all. That's, again, this is what I offer to the table, and this is...
So, like, when you watch Lord of the Rings, do you think the same thing when Bilbo's explaining what hobbits are? Like, we're like...
You know what? I might, when we go to talk about that, I might judge it.
Making note of that for when we get to that in our episodes.
I might judge it. It might happen. So, I think, to be fair, I am looking for the like places I could pop the bubble. I'll be like, no, it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be. I tried not to do that, but I couldn't help but do it. But I gotta say, the first 45 minutes of this movie is very charming.
Yes.
I actually I couldn't understand why people had take umbrage with it, because it's so charming for the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's my first note, is that Ian Holm starting the movie is so comforting. I'm home again. Because, like, when, Sam closed, I never not tear. Have you seen Lord of the Rings, Jess?
I've seen the movies, yes.
Okay. Just making sure. I didn't know, because you haven't seen Hobbit.
Fair question.
But, like, when Sam says, I'm home, and closes the door on us, like, I never not at least tear up in some way. Like, it's just such an emotional thing. And so just being back in Middle-earth and having Ian Holm, who's, like, just this classically trained actor, like just narrate this opening for us about the Shire and then going into Dale and the desolation of Smaug. Like, it's just like, yes, we are back. I've waited to be back in Middle-earth for so long, and we are here.
And
totally.
That's kind of my first thing about this movie, is I agree with all that stuff. And the prologue, I have mixed feelings about, because as we're going to see throughout talking about this film in particular, I think I agree with Jess. The first 45 minutes is charming, but there are a lot of things they do that mimic kind of the formula of the Fellowship of the Ring film that feel a bit weird to me, because the Hobbit story is a very different tone. It's a very different kind of story than the Lord of the Rings, but Peter Jackson is trying really hard to fit this story into that mold that he made. So the prologue being the first thing where we start in the Shire, but then we're immediately launched into this epic kind of, battle sequence with Smaug, breathing fire at the gates of Erebor. And it's the shifts in tone in this film, I think, sometimes can be a bit jarring. So
you're saying that that's akin to, I didn't even think about this, that's like the Battle of the Last Alliance-ish.
Yes, it's 100% the same thing. Like,
but it does work though.
Yeah.
Like with other things where they make the dwarves like stupidly fight, this works. I kind of need to know what Smaug did and how, right?
Yeah, I mean it changes the nature of the story compared to the book. I'm fine with it. It's just, this is like the first.
What way, though?
because, Bilbo doesn't know what he's getting into, and the reader doesn't know what he's getting into. But as a film goer, as someone watching this movie, when you have that information, it changes how you view like the dwarves showing up, because you're like, oh, I just saw this dude have this epic fight with a dragon, and so it changes that a little bit for me. And I think the reason they do it is just because, well, it's the same formula as Fellowship of the Ring, so that worked. Let's do it here. And I don't know if it necessarily works 100% for me.
I understand what you're saying for sure, and I think a lot of the blame of these trilogy belongs with the studio making it a trilogy.
Yes,
making it rushed, was why Guillermo del Toro was literally almost done with his pre-production and then bailed, and that's why there's so much stuff like left on the counter of like. Ron Perlman was supposed to be either Azog or Bolg. I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be one of them, and then when Guillermo left, he left because that's his boy. And so just like they're like, we need another Lord of the Rings, literally make a prequel to Lord of the Rings more than make The Hobbit, which is what these movies are. So I understand that, but I also think that having all the Dale Desolation of Smaug prequel stuff serves better here than Gandalf explaining it to Bilbo later down the road when the dwarves show up, or like the dinner scene is long enough already.
Yes.
I don't think we need any more exposition. Plus Balin giving the exposition about Thorin Oakenshield and Azog, like we need that backstory. Like there's a lot of exposition that goes in this movie, so having the Lonely Mountain prequel basically and the Arrowwar prequel get done at the beginning, I think is the right story choice. But I understand what you mean, because so much of the book is like, what's happening? Like, these dwarves are showing up. What is going on? This guy lives such a quiet life.
And I think you're 100% right in that the reason that's happening is because they have to, they were pressured probably to tie it in directly to the Lord of the Rings series.
Yes.
If you had a trilogy, or no, not a trilogy, but if you maybe had two movies, that you didn't make any effort at all to connect it to Peter Jackson's trilogy, I think then that works. Where you have this sort of Bilbo doesn't know what's going on, the viewer doesn't know what's going on, and you just reveal that stuff as the story goes, similar to how it's done in the book. But because of that need to go, oh, we're going to have Elijah Wood show up because remember him, and we're going to have Ian Holm show up because remember him. If you don't do that stuff, then I think it works. But so and there are a lot of
this movie in a vacuum.
Sorry, what's that?
You know what I mean? I'm sorry. You can't make this movie in a vacuum, though. So you kind of have to do those things.
Yeah. They were kind of going to with Guillermo. That was...
Were they?
Yeah. I don't think he was going to bring back all...
He wanted to do two movies.
Yeah.
I know that much for sure.
That makes sense, because one of the things we're not going to get to talk about today, but will next week, is us actually seeing what's going on with the White Council. And it's like, no, I don't want this. This isn't what the movie is. But I can see why they fill in the blanks. Like, I did not know that that's how Thorin Oakenshield got his name. I had a little bit more empathy for the guy. Just a little bit. He sucks. But, like, it was a cool background story. And they could have truncated things just this. Like, I do want to have, like, the long sweeping. I want to live there for a long time. You can make a lot happen, especially because Tolkien writes the chapters so shortly. He just kind of goes, this happened, then there was trolls, and then they all got captured. He's not really luxuriating in the book. So you can, Brokeback Mountain was a 45-page short story, and they made that a whole gosh darn movie.
Like, all the best Stephen King adaptations are from his novellas, not from his books. Like Stand By Me and what am I thinking of?
Was Stand By Me a novella? Oh, that's cool.
I think so. Pretty sure.
Sure, I don't know.
I'm sure I'm wrong about it. Shawshank, I know, was a shorter story as well.
Now a
Green
3.5 hour movie.
Green Mile, I think was. I think The Mist was as well. So like some of the best ones in my humble opinion. But also just like one tiny detail that I love about this prequel. The prologue is that when the dwarf that finds the Arkenstone, he has a little headlamp with candles on it. And I wrote that note down. I was like, that is such a small detail that no one would have said anything if just like, because, when they go, when Riddle's in the dark, there's light everywhere, even though they're at the bottom of a mountain. Yeah. Like, and so like no one would have
100,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one would have questioned like, oh, there's light here. There's mining. But I just love like the little candle headlamp that he just got. It's so great.
And that's the thing that Peter Jackson Jackson and Weta together do so well in these movies, despite the problems we have with them, is making you feel like this is a living, breathing Middle Earth, and the attention to detail and like the miniatures, and it just looks gorgeous. The design of everything. I mean, even like the forging scenes where the dwarf like holds the thing up and the two hammers come and hit it. It's awesome. It's amazing.
That's what I'm saying. It's those things and the quick pace of it, strangely, makes it super charming. And I'm like, this is great. And now also too, with all the dwarves coming in. By the way, Gandalf is creepy. Gandalf looking at etching the sign in the door and then like looking and like in the window. That's weird. I think anyway, it's just weird.
That's Peter Jackson's horror side coming out.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's stuff I don't think we need, but it's fine. I mean, it's totally fine, but it's just odd. Oh, Alex, you saw this in the
X-ray.
Yeah. So Martin Freeman was always the first choice, and he's the perfect choice. Like, honestly, the movie is only salvageable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's him. But they're like, I think even Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe, Josh Widdicombe, who's like a British comedian, which Jess and I know because of like Taskmaster and some shows we watch. And I can't. Yeah, there are a couple other ones that were just like, oh, that would have been a weird choice.
A different movie.
Yeah, I think they had to delay filming because of Fargo season 1.
Yeah.
And like, because Peter was like, Martin is Bilbo. Like,
I think it was Sherlock, but yes, one of the
two. Sherlock.
Yeah.
That's right. It was Sherlock. That's right.
And there isn't a thing that Martin Freeman. Aren't there a million pictures of him just slipping off the camera too during
as
the
Bilbo
filming of this? I'd be curious to like have him on and go, did you know what you were making at the time you were making?
Did you know these would live on forever as GIFs on the internet?
Or no, like if you knew, did you know these were going to be bad or?
Oh, the movies.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what he thinks.
I mean, I can't blame anyone for not jumping head. I mean, it's like the very famous Liam Neeson not reading Phantom Menace before he signed up for Star Wars because it's Star Wars. Like, I would have jumped head first to be, Ori or, Gloin or, the Bomber, like the dwarf, like that they get perfectly introduced where it's like, here's the dwarfs that matter. Here's all of them that don't. Like, and so like I would have signed up in a second to be in the makeup chair for 6 hours a day to, run in the background.
Well, and one thing I do like about this movie is, so we talked about this when we were talking about the book. One of the problems I have with the book is that the dwarves are so indistinguishable except for maybe like Fili Kili, Balin, and Thorin. But even the dwarves that don't matter in this movie, they at least give a little bit of a personality and a little bit of a character, so you remember which ones are which obviously they had to do because it's on screen. It's not a book where you can just kind of ignore them. But I really liked what they did with all the dwarfs and making them unique. My favorite is Boffer. I can't remember, Nesbitt. James Nesbitt plays him. He's my favorite.
I wrote a note, and we'll get to it next week, about like the conversation he has with Bilbo that just breaks my heart.
About home,
because there are like, and then Balin is so good. In the flashback scene, like his teary eyes when he's like, oh, like we survived, but we didn't sing songs. It's just like, there are like, and maybe it's like my Middle Earth thing that I will find anything that I love about these movies, but there are some really solid performances out of like just really small moments that are given to all the dwarves.
My favorite is in this first half that we're talking about is when they're in Bag End, Balin and Thorin's little conversation where, they're talking about, well, we're not all good warriors. And Thorin's like, well, but you all said yes and you're all here and that's what matters. Like, that little bit of dimension to the company, I love because it really, underlines the weight and significance of their quest to them that we don't really get a sense of individually in the book. And I like those moments where they flesh that out a little bit, and they're bringing in enough stuff from appendices and Lord of the Rings to flesh it out. Now, should they have brought in as much as they did? Maybe not. But So,
can we talk about the Misty Mountain song that I want played at my funeral?
Yes, I was about to jump into speaking of all of the dwarfs and their relationships, we get not one but two amazing songs in the dinner party. First we get the "That's What Bilbo Baggins Hates" song.
Blunt the knives.
Yep. Bang the forks. And I love how they incorporated like a sort of choreography of them like hitting the bowls and the plates and stuff. It's so good. And it's interesting, like, because I always had in my head as from when I was a kid, when we watched the Hobbit cartoon, those versions of the songs in my head. So it was cool hearing a sort of different take on them.
It's got to be hard to not want to just rehash those songs and make them exactly what the Rankin and Bass one were. Like the Goblin Town was hard for me. But yeah, I don't know if you've heard me say this, Ben, but the music, them busting out singing is cringe to me. It's so uncomfortable.
Oh, I love it so much because it's such a huge part of the books. Like I just reread Fellowship, and I'm rereading Two Towers. Like they break into 2-page long stanza songs in the books, and it does it in The Hobbit as well. And I like the song "Blunt the Knives" and "That's What Bilbo Baggins Hates," but like the CGI things were like elbowing plates. I'm like, okay, like I get it, but like it doesn't look the greatest. Sure. But I love Misty Mountains. Like when they're around the fire and they've decided to do this thing, and like Bilbo, and just seeing it from Bilbo's perspective, like you have like 13 strangers in your house, and then they're explaining this quest, and then they just start like humming and like this ancestral song that just comes from their like the bottom of their gut and through their heart, and it's just like, okay, this is what we're about. Because it's been kind of silly up until this point. We had the prologue, but we got the silly song. We've had croquet is a good sport if you got the balls for it. Like, we've had all them eating and burping and farting and all this stuff. And then they hit you with the Misty Mountain song. You're like, no, this is what this journey is about, is finding and reclaiming their home and like finding their place in the world. That they have literally, like this whole race of people has lost their place in the world. And this is what it's about. And I love it so much.
Totally. I think it's easy to, at least for me, to lose the enormity of what Smaug did. And I think that's why I liked the prologue. And so you can see the scores of them being driven away. And it does get brought back. And I didn't realize that this was the theme, but missing home, not having a home is an interesting thing. And to be fair, I know that like, you don't have TV or radio, so you're writing songs and people are doing that, and that's how you're doing entertainment. So like I understand. It's not like just some mechanism that Tolkien's like, I should do a poem now. It's just, if someone were to be like, now sing, or like it's taken upon me, I'm the spirit has moved me to sing. It just sounds horrible. It's the same reason why I wouldn't want to play a bard in a D&D campaign.
But did you think the same thing like in Pippin's song in Return of the King? Like when they're charging?
He was asked to sing.
Yeah, everybody's asked to sing. Like Aragorn sings.
No, but no one asked Aragorn to sing. No one said, hey, sing a little dirge about Boromir, our bud. And they just like all of a sudden go, yeah, da, 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 da. And again, it is good. It comes from their souls.
And he's just improvising on the spot, too, with Boromir.
It's just insane to me. It's insane.
This is just further proof that Aragorn is the perfect man. Not only is he a king and a leader, a fighter, a lover, with Arwen, but he's an artist too. He can just make up
he's an artist.
Beautiful poetry and song on the spot.
Should I be scared, Alex? If someone like Aragorn,
everyone should be scared about them losing their partner to Aragorn. Like no one is safe. Literally no one is safe.
Aragorn. You got it?
Exactly.
You guys got it? Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Also, when they come in before the song happens, do you guys know what a glory box is? He's like, that's my mom's glory box.
It sounds dirty, but I don't.
It does sound dirty. It's actually sad. It's basically a box where a woman puts it's either a glory box or a hope chest. And it's where a woman... I maybe I'm wrong, but a hope chest for sure is where a woman puts all her linens and all her things that she might use once she's married.
Oh.
So like she'll hold on to things. in the chest or the box for her adult life as a married woman.
So are they still? Do we think they're still in the box when?
No, but it's just like you do have. It is her chest that's still there. So it has like the history of that's where she put all her stuff, and it probably holds other things now. So now you know.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, totally. So there's things that stray from the text, which is fine, but we just read it, so it's fresh on my mind. But do you guys like that it's like, oh, Bilbo, you know what? Here's what I will say. I like that Bilbo wakes up and goes, oh, I think I kind of wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted
I've never related to Bilbo more than the kid who sleeps too long when his friends are over or like at camp or something. I was the kid that slept in and like everyone was up and, you know, like already playing and I already missed, you know, oh, you already missed freeze tag and we did this and you missed breakfast. And I'm just like, what? No one woke me up. Like, and then, yeah. So I like watching it today. I was like, oh man, that's me, Mr. Oversleeper.
Yeah. It's definitely relatable. And also that feeling of like, oh, you know, I had that opportunity, but I didn't say yes. And then Bilbo sort of in that moment, the sort of wish fulfillment of, nope, he runs off and does it instead of, you know, he gives into his Tookish side. I do like that change from the book as opposed to just him finding the letter and being like, oh, meet us here, you know. Him not agreeing and then in that moment of split decision saying, no, I'm going to go join them. I do like that. And it makes for a more cinematic moment.
It's not canon, and thus I reject it and won't watch it.
This is like fan fiction to me, and I don't like it.
It's fan fiction. So the guy who plays Theoden has gone on record as this isn't the real thing. I won't watch it. Enjoy it if you want, but talking about Rings of Power.
Oh, really?
I know. Yeah. Good night. Go to sleep, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time for bed, Grandpa.
I just can't. Yeah. Thanks, bro. So he runs off. Mm-hmm. They cleaned everything. It doesn't smell like dwarf anymore. And he runs, and he's so cute. He's I love the,
I'm going on an adventure, you know, with the contract.
Yeah. Immediately gift into history of like anybody that, you know, goes for a hike at Runyon Canyon likes to put on their Twitter account. But no, just Martin Freeman is just, he's so good in this movie. Like, I know we'll talk about him constantly because he is like the saving grace of this trilogy.
Sure.
But he's just so good. And the way he plays his FOMO of like, you know, he passes out the night before. He's like, no, I don't care who my ancestors were. I do love, I wrote this down. It's like Gandalf like kind of gaslighting him. Like, when you were a kid, you used to love it. Yeah, yes, Gandalf, I was a child. Yeah. I was a literal child. So yes, I used to run around. I'm an adult now, and I like to smoke pipe weed and relax and, you know, eat with my pantry of like, I've never been more jealous of a pantry than Bilbo's. Good Lord. The fact that he had to
get up and make food.
Yeah. He just had enough to feed 14 strangers just off the rip.
Or is he Jesus and did he multiply the loaves and the fish?
Yeah, he just had bread and water.
Is this an allegory for Jesus?
Tolkien was a good Catholic man, so it's entirely possible.
He was.
I'm just saying, cold chicken, fish, same kind of thing. Maybe. But it is something about, like, ever since reading it, I've always wanted seed bread. What is it? Like, seed cake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, seed cake. Yeah, he's got so many cakes in the book. Like, they keep talking about how many cakes he has. And it's just like, they empty him out. And I love that. But it's like, he still had all of that. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a little hoarder.
And just the moment when he hands, I think it's Glowin, the cakes, and then he just takes one and puts it behind his back.
It's so cute. You know exactly what he's feeling in that moment.
And the shot where it sort of pans and reveals Bilbo just like staring at him eating his fish, and his the face he's pulling is 100%. We're like, we've all been there. We know what that is.
So that's what I mean. It's like, now you're showing me a movie that I'm just absolutely enjoying. I'm in. I bought in. They hit the road. And then they introduce Radagast, and I want to die. I thought I would be excited to meet Radagast, honest to God. And then you show me a man with bird poop on his head, and there's animal cruelty happening left and right, dead animals. No, thank you.
Take it up with the necromancer. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
No. Take it up with the retconning SOB Tolkien.
Well, so to be fair, this is not retconning. The necromancer was a thing in The Hobbit.
No, Radagast is a retcon, isn't it?
Yes. He's not named in The Hobbit. It's just that he does mention there are other wizards, though, I believe. He mentions the Council of Wizards, which later became the White Council. So yeah, the Radagast part is retconning. The necromancer part is not. But yeah, the integration of Radagast into this story is interesting. I don't know. I see why they did it. It's a mechanism for us to be introduced to this whole necromancer thing that Peter Jackson was like, well, this is present as a minor thing in The Hobbit, but we're going to flesh this out. And again, drawing the connection to his original trilogy and Sauron in that. But the stuff that he has Radagast doing in this movie is a little bit over the top.
You can imagine that that's how Radagast is, though. Like if he is friends with the birds and the bees, you can imagine he's like afraid of a little hedgehog dying.
But
my heart can't handle it. I'm empathizing too much with a hedgehog I've never met.
Sebastian.
It's heartbreaking. It's sickening. Thank God he lived.
Yeah.
I'm watching a
justice for
die
Sebastian
in pain. Justice.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that that's what Radagast is about, kind of. But I need to not see a person with bird poop on their face.
Lichen or moss.
That design choice.
I don't know if it's bird poop, Jess.
Yeah.
It's lichen for sure it is, because obviously he's been traveling for 20 days. And
I think it's bird poop because he's got a bird living on his head.
Oh.
Does he have a bird living on his head?
He literally has a bird nest under his hat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's bird poop
I'm
then.
sold.
Alex said it's lichen.
No,
it's
I
bird
didn't
poop.
think of that. I didn't make the connection, Ben, and that you're 100% right. It's just leakage from the nest.
Yeah, it's
disgusting.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's where
I like
Smaug poops.
Yeah, I like Christopher McQuarrie's not Christopher, what's his name? Oh man. I just about to say Christopher McQuarrie. That I can't think of it. But I like his performance, but yeah, the character design itself is just like, oh man. But are we going past Radagast because we skip the
I need help.
Flashback to the Battle of the Mines of Moria with Azog.
Oh, it's because I just don't care.
Okay. Well, my only question of this, because like this is like, just like Thorin's origin story, basically. Yeah. I have two notes. One, why did anybody think Azog died from just his hand being cut off?
Thank you.
Yes.
Like, why did, like, I know Balin and Gandalf give each other, like, a knowing look, like, oh, we'll just let him believe that, which is weird. Thorin's a grown man. Like, it's not like a child telling Santa Claus doesn't exist or something.
Because we need the reveal later on. Obviously.
20 minutes later. It's not like in the second. Because, like, I was going to say, I love that they hide Smaug until, Bilbo sees him. I think that's really great, and that was like the hype for the trailer, like this is the best dragon that's been ever on film, and I still agree. I think it's better than any Game of Thrones dragon we've got as well. Smaug is awesome, and we'll get that in a few weeks, but I don't get like the mystery of this. Like I mean I know it's canonical, but it's just like it was in the book, like Azog was the leader of the orcs, and
minor lore quibble. Azog technically, so in the lore, he dies at that battle. He's killed by Dane Ironfoot, who we'll see later. But it's his son, who I believe also, if my memory serves, Bolg is his son. Right? So Bolg is the one in the book who's leading the goblin and orc armies at the Battle of Five Armies. Azog is dead. I get why they put Azog in the films, because again, Thorin has that direct relationship to him, and I'm fine with, okay, cool, Azog lives. It's not that consequential. But I
But don't make Thorin that dumb.
Yes.
Though.
Because he's.
I think that's
he's
the
not
problem.
That young when it happens, and
is he not the one that does it?
Well, he's the one who cuts his arm off, and then they see, in the film they see him dragging him back in. But why would you make? I agree. Why would you make the assumption that he died of his wounds? It's like,
and beyond that, he sure, I'm sure Thorin is fighting a couple other dudes after that, but from what they describe in the movie, a lot of the orcs stop, drop, and roll, and they're like, "Holy crap! Our leader just got hurt," and it was a rallying moment for everybody. And you see Azog getting dragged, kicking and screaming about his arm, by the way, into the caves. Have him be passed out.
What's that?
From loss of blood or something.
Oh, yeah, sure. Exactly. He was there's nothing even visually shown that he died. It's such a good point, Jess. Have him be passed out and his soldiers carrying him back into the cave.
We all know he's alive because of how he's kicking and screaming.
He's vigorously fight. He's still in the fight.
Here's the other thing.
Totally.
We then see, why do they give us that and then show him? Because if I'm remembering correctly, we see him before Thorin. It's revealed to Thorin that he's still alive, right?
Yes. Yeah. After the attack where they escape to Rivendell, then we cut to
them reporting to Azog.
The orcs that escaped reporting to Azog.
Why not keep it a secret from us as well, and then have the reveal that happens later, which we'll talk about.
Because they have so many minutes of the movie.
But no, have him reporting, but we don't see who he's reporting to. You know what I mean?
And that's I don't. The runtime of this movie really doesn't bother me. This one, when we get to Battle of Five Armies, we'll talk about that. But this one, it's just that's such an it's only to reveal Azog. So you can have the knowing look with Balin and Gandalf. That makes sense, and we'll be okay, maybe he's not even if we fix him being passed out carrying away back into Moria, then you have the knowing look, you're oh, maybe he's not, and you as a moviegoer is oh, I bet he's alive. But then having the reveal when they out of the frying pan into the fire, and we'll talk about that next week, that's the reveal of Azog right there. They've been tracking him, you have the minion orcs tracking him, and then report back to the leader or the boss or whatever. And then you reveal, hunt them down. And then you're with Thorin in that big reveal of no way. My worst nightmare, who killed my grandfather, who emotionally and mentally scarred my father into insanity. This, it's such a big moment, and we're already ahead of our characters, and it really deflates it.
100%. And that, the biggest problems I have, I think, with these movies are that sort of the Goblin Wars plot with Thorin and stuff. A lot of that feels just jammed in there, and that if they had done those kinds of things to make it more emotionally resonant, I think it would have worked a lot better.
It's just not the first movie he's ever made, and to make that choice and not someone not stop them and be you guys, this is dumb, is weird. Now, what I will say is what he did with the claw in the arm.
That's cool.
With the stake poking out, that's pretty cool.
That's so hardcore.
I know.
And I love that it's not some Winter Soldier arm or something. No, it's just a spike driven through his arm. And he's just got
pointy end.
The other pointy end
is just sticking out.
It's gotta hurt. It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, he's in constant pain. They cauterize the wound in Moria just with flame, and they're stick it in, and that's just been his life. It's
totally.
It's wild. I know that I feel I've seen the practical design. It was gonna be a guy in a suit. For a long time until they just needed to speed up production, so they made Bolg and Azog both CGI, which I think are two of the biggest mistakes of the film, the trilogy.
It's jarring.
But I do love in a vacuum, I do love that design, just of his choice. He does stand out. He is huge, but again, if I cut Shaq's hand off, I don't think he's gonna die.
Right.
Like it's just not like if I'm fighting Shaq and I cut his hand off and people are dragging Shaq away from me, kicking and screaming like with bloodlust. I'm like, I got him. Fight's over. I'm never gonna see that guy again. No, I'm like, oh my god, I cut his hand off and he's still crazy.
Yeah, I better like look over my shoulder every second.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pissed off Shaq.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about Shaq now. I'm talking about like Shaq like on the Magic.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago, Shaq. Like I'm fighting that guy. Like that's how big Azog is. And so no, I just
Shaq.
Exactly. Like insane. But I do love while Balin is telling that story, you just have like Thorin looking over it off into the distance. He can hear Balin. He's like, yeah, it's my hype story, baby. This is good.
And then
this is good, right? I just love that.
Everybody is just like looking at him wistfully as he like turns to come back.
Yes.
It's my king.
It's actually the worst. It's actually the worst because he's like, I'm mad that you guys are talking about orcs. Wait, now tell the story that's super triggering to me. And and then they all... Now, you do get... Here's the thing. They force us to have a reverence for him.
Yeah.
And view him as a king. Whereas... So he's trying... I wonder... I'm just putting this together now. Is he playing our Aragorn role? Whereas you didn't have to try so hard to make Aragorn our king. Aragorn was reluctant to come into it, so we wanted him to be it. What were we gonna say, Ben?
That's the thing, is that Aragorn wanted, like, he was afraid of the mantle because of his history. And this is like, I understand the hardships that Thorin has gone through, and like, his what's the word? Like, he doesn't like elves, and for good reason. Like, by the way, I have that note in the prologue where Lee Pace is uncomfortably hot. like just
he
like
looks
him
like
just
he's CGI.
Yeah. We watched this back home and my mom was just like, oh my. Like when he walked on screen and it was just like, yeah, Lee Pace is insanely gorgeous in this role. And we'll talk about him more in the next movie.
Oh, can we just talk about his what's Pretty Woman moment where they close the box of diamonds on him?
Yeah.
That is a pretty good moment. I will say that.
He's just so, and that's like, but just like, I lost my train of thought, but just like, I understand what you're saying, but like Thorin is wrong this entire movie, basically, and almost this entire trilogy. But the moments when he owns up to it really pay off for me. But no, I get what you mean, where it's just like, it's a reluctant leadership. And we always want that. That's the thing. We always want those like people that are forced into leadership. They take, the Rick Grimes of the world, the Aragorns of the world. Like, I didn't want this, but
the Halbrands.
How dare
you? He didn't want it.
Too soon.
She made him.
Too soon.
She made him.
Too soon.
If only he hadn't been on that raft.
If only. Well, I wonder what he was doing there.
But I agree with you. There's like he really annoyed me. And yet there are certain moments where they've managed to make it land.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not the protag, he's not the lead, but he is the inciting incident in a sense, kind of. And we do get it's a nuanced character. I just think I would have liked maybe a different actor. That's just me. But moving right along to the trolls. I think now it's
before the trolls, right? One thing I did want to mention is
help me, please.
When they come across, this is right before the trolls, when they come across that like ruined farmhouse, and Gandalf and Thorin have the conversation about Rivendell, which you were kind of alluding to, where it's like they really play up the elf dwarf conflict in this.
Prejudice, that's the word I was thinking of.
He's prejudiced against the elves for turning their backs on Erebor in their moments of need. I like that here, and later on we'll talk about next episode, they give reasons for Gandalf to leave. Whereas in the book, they're just like, oh, he's a wizard. He just comes and goes as he pleases. No explanation, and you're just, as a reader, like, cool, okay. And here we get Gandalf just, and it's a very Gandalf thing to do, just being pissed and being like, oh, I can't believe dwarves, and just leaving them because he's like mad at Thorin for being so stubborn. I like that there's a justification there, and it plays into the character and what's later going to happen. So
it does work because like our introduction to the dwarves is like Dwalin like eating Bilbo's dinner and then just like them raiding the pantry. You know, yeah, they clean the dishes, but like they're not the best house guests. And so you have had like a lot of stubbornness from them and Thorin. And so finally like how does Gandalf put up with these guys like 24/7? And he doesn't. He just dips.
He's like the ultimate introvert. I just need my space. I'm emotionally drained. But yeah, and then we come to the trolls, Feely and Keely as lookouts, which again, that's true to their characters in the books. They are just kind of the grunt workers. Whenever there's something to be done, the dwarves are just like, Feely and Keely, the young ones, go do that.
But how bad are they at like? I don't have good eyesight. I wear glasses when I drive when I go to the movies.
Dork.
I'm sorry. If a 15-foot tall troll lumbered up and stole 2 horses, like he doesn't steal like an apple or something like that. He steals 2 ponies and then goes smashing through the forest. I'm going to see it. Like,
also, it's dumb that they didn't extrapolate. I mean, they're dumb trolls, but they go, look it, there's 15. There's something else with these ponies.
They're stupid.
Yeah,
but yeah, they should have known it was trolls for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, are dwarves just short, dumb trolls?
I will say
racist?
Oin is definitely the dumbest dwarf.
Is he like the little baby dummy?
Yes. Like
he's
the
not
one that
with
says
the axe.
No, the one that like I'm trying to think of his line. Like he says like, "Oh, I'll get the dragon with like
give him the wolf
shove his
like
iron like." Yeah, and
he has no beard either, right?
He has no beard. He's the youngest.
Bangs.
Yes.
Bowl cut.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, man, Oin's really dumb. Like,
and yet,
like he right at the end, like he shoots the slingshot at the wolf.
Like because they play him as like the youngest, dumbest one, whereas in the books it's like Feely and Keely. But Feely and Keely are like the older cousins to him. They're slightly more experienced.
Yeah,
still naive though. Yeah, the slingshot to the troll is very very far fetched.
Yeah. But that's like, so like the Bilbo gets captured. They get captured and like, they fight for a little bit. And that's what another Thorin you bug me moment is, that Bilbo is trying to free the ponies and gets captured and like, put your swords down or we'll kill him. And Thorin's like, oh, Bilbo, you did it again. It's like, there is 5 minutes of all the dwarves swinging their axes and their swords and hitting, and they don't do any damage to any of the trolls. Like, I'm sorry, y'all had a solid window to at least take down one of these, Bert, Tom, and William. They're all left unscathed.
Trolls are hardy creatures. So, like, if we think about, going to the Fellowship of the Ring movie, they had the entire Fellowship, arguably 10 times the fighters that the dwarfs are. You have Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. You have to remember these dwarves. They're some of them are fighters, but they haven't fought in a war in decades and decades. So they're inexperienced. They're not inexperienced. They're rusty, right? When's the last time they fought a troll? So I can see that. And some of them are like Ori. They're just slingshotting. They maybe have like 5 or 6 that are old fighters.
You could have cut like a knee tendon. You could have cut something.
But I do agree. And the problem I have with this is, because they wanted to make this a fight scene, because they've imbued the dwarves with this, stuff that maybe they weren't in the books. Because in the books they just get captured. The thing that they have to do is make the trolls smarter than they would be and go, oh, if we nab this hobbit and hold him hostage, we know they'll give up. Like, I think that's giving the trolls too much credit. I think trolls are just going to be like smash and kill. And they would have just kept fighting. They're not going to have that realization of, oh, we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of these dwarves, and obviously they'll put their weapons down if we just threaten to tear this one apart. That's the leap for me that I can't make.
Yeah, it just gives like Thorin like it goes back and forth where it, like Bilbo gets captured, so Thorin hates Bilbo. But then in the book, it's Gandalf that like does the voices and distracts them for the Dawn. But then in the movie, it's Bilbo, and so like he's like, oh, but Bilbo's doing something, and so like it goes back and forth. I understand it, but I was just like,
I do
shut the hell up.
You know what though? I half expect Thorin to be like, yeah, kill him. I don't care. Like up to this point, Thorin should just be like.
He does take a long time. I did notice it this time. Like he makes a long, lengthy decision before he puts his sword down.
He's sacrificing 13 for one person he doesn't even like very much. So, just saying. He's obviously not a bad guy, but...
No. He's an honorable dwarf, but, like, he's just he's a grumpy boy.
And that's the thing. What do they think is going to happen after this? What are they thinking their out is? I mean, are they assuming, like, well, maybe Gandalf will come back? Like, I do like the change, I will say, of Bilbo getting to be the one who's a little bit smart and tricksy here. I wish it would have been a little bit closer to what happens where they start arguing about how to cook the dwarves. That's only a little bit of it, and then the rest is like the whole moment of, oh, we've got parasites or whatever. I didn't like that as much.
It's kind of
it's a little funny, like Thorin kicking them, like shut up.
Yeah, them being still like clueless of like no, and then him like Thorin realizing what he's doing. I thought was a good moment.
But then we still do get Gandalf coming in and saving them, which is nice.
Yeah.
So this is first of all, it's The Hobbit and it's Tolkien, and no one's saying that this isn't a great story for what it is. But I do hate how much chance plays a factor into the success of these folks not dying.
No, that's the crazy part is like they do try and make this a prequel to Lord of the Rings when in the books the tones couldn't be more different. Like this book is so whimsical and light, and we'll get to the stone giants next week and everything.
I can't wait to puke
And I'm pretty sure the eagles talk in the books as well. And like, you know, and so there's so much like magic in this world. It's closer to like Harry Potter than it is Middle Earth. And so, like, they had to tone so much down. So, like, the tone of this movie is kind of all over the place. We're like, we're used to this fantasy world that's very self-serious from Lord of the Rings. Like, yes, there are magical, mythical beings, but, like, it's pretty grounded. Like, we'll see orcs and, you know, the Watcher in the water. But other than that, like, I get it. I get what's going on here. Like, it's even, like, less mythical, like, than even Game of Thrones and stuff like that. Like, there's, like, talk of dragons, and, like, we know, if you know Bilbo's story, you know that, but they don't really go into it. In this one, you know, like you said, they're singing songs, there's stone giants, there's all these things, like, in the Hobbit book that they decided to put in the movie that doesn't jive with the tone of Lord of the Rings. And so it is different, and the tones do clash a little bit. I think they make them work as much as they could. But I do understand like the complaint of like, you know, like this seems off from like what we're doing over here. And that's why the story of The Hobbit isn't a Lord of the Rings prequel. And so like they're telling The Hobbit and they're telling like, oh, and what about Sauron and Azog and all this stuff over here? It's like, make them separate.
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
I mean, the moment that exemplifies that for me is in this one, when Gandalf is kind of trying to talk Bilbo up back in Bag End, and he starts talking about bull roarer, and then he drops the line that's in The Hobbit of, and the game of golf was invented too. That it's like so tonally not at all. It's like, wait, so golf is now in the world of Lord of the Rings? Like, it's so weird.
That's why, like, Gandalf is literally Radagast the Brown. Like, that's who he is in The Hobbit. Like, he's this aloof stranger that just shows up when it's convenient, and he's crazy. It's like, oh, those wizards. But we know Gandalf, you know, the white and the, like, fly you fools and all his very serious moments. So, like, it's a tough composition they're dancing there.
But it works if you want to hook a kid early.
Yes.
And then jumped. Like, I was too young to know that it was so different.
Right.
When I started The Hobbit and then immediately jumped to The Lord of the Rings. But now I know too much, and so the whimsy is gone. So yeah, I disliked how the troll scene played out, but it made sense. Like, we didn't want to watch one by one while all of them getting captured just wasn't going to work. And we kind of got to see a little bit of Bilbo being wily, which is good. I think that's sooner than we see it in the book, so that's kind of cool. And I guess I have a question as to why do trolls turn into stone? Do either of you know this?
I think they're just not like night creatures. It's just like I don't know. There probably is like some deep reference to it that, you know, a bigger Tolkien nerd than me will know, but I think it's
something probably from another mythology that he's bringing in here is like trolls turning to stone. I think that's probably borrowed from somewhere, but that's also a common theme of most of the hosts of Morgoth and his creatures is they have an aversion to sunlight, including the orcs. So I think that's probably related.
So Tolkien's letter 153 implies that since trolls were created from stone by Morgoth using a spell cast in darkness, they revert to their true nature when exposed to the sun. Emphasis, I don't know. I think trolls are mere counterfeits, and hence, though here I am, of course, only using elements of old barbarous myth-making that had no aware metaphysics, they return to mere stone images when not in dark.
I liked that we got this sort of parallelism of earlier Bilbo forgetting his pocket handkerchief and then later being used as a pocket handkerchief. I thought that was my favorite part of it. Very true.
Ew. I was really hoping we were going to get away from talking about floaters and snot, but that was disgusting. It wasn't even worth it. I got it. Like, I understand that they have stinky butts.
Lot of body humor in the scene, the scratching of the butt.
I could not believe they missed out on a fart joke, though. They did not fart. I could have sworn, like, when he was going to reach for the knife, he was going to fart, but instead he just wiped his ass. But, like, classy. Yeah.
He really should have farted in Bilbo's face, and that's how they should have found Bilbo, because he was like, oh, God. Or he could have passed out and then woke up 20 minutes later and all the dwarves were caught.
Oh.
We could have cut out
there you go
5 minutes.
Look at Jess, the editor over here.
Give me a call, Wingnut Films.
Jess, we need you to punch up the script. He farts and then he passes out. Done.
Hey, done. We got
you gotta go picture, kid.
Yeah. Cancel Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I'm in. Okay, so then they take off because the trolls are stoned now, and then what happens in between? Help me.
So this is when Radagast shows up.
Right.
Like, they're like, oh no, they find the elf swords, Orcris and Glamdring.
Right.
And this is huge in the books. Like, they kind of touch on them a little bit, you know, in Rivendell and then with the Goblin King, but this is like a huge moment in the books, and those names of like Beater and Biter like driven into my brain. But that's when Radagast shows up, and I have in the notes where it's like Radagast says he's gonna, you know, lead the orcs off, but he just keeps doing donuts in the parking lot, and they don't go anywhere. And I'm just like there's literally a moment where they're 10 feet in front of them, and he just like drives by. He's like, I got this. He's like, no, go away.
Like,
what are you doing?
Why are they
so high?
Why is it
so
like
high.
intersecting with the path to Rivendell? Why didn't he just go the complete opposite way? It's like, what are you doing, dude?
There's a world though where Radagast has no idea where Rivendell is.
Yeah,
he's
he's trying to sneak his way into the White Council because he's like, oh, all the other wizards are there.
It's possible because, like, you know, Gandalf just gave him like a giant hit off his pipe like right beforehand. He's like, all right, now go drive. It's like, what are you doing?
He's gonna get pulled over by Elrond and his company and get a DUI. Like, sir, do you know how fast you were going in your rabbit sled?
It's like two Ex Machina. Radagast is like, I'll take them away, and yes, these rabbits are fast, and it's not animal cruelty. And then just so happens the elves are there, and
it's triple Ex Machina because you have Radagast leading them away, then you have the hidden passage, and then you have the elves showing up.
Well,
worst.
To be fair, I'm
movies.
Fine with.
No,
I have other problems with this, but I'm fine with Elrond being out and killing the orcs because. Remember, he has one of the rings of power, and he is using it to protect his domain.
Tolkien
explaining. Okay, and so he has the ring of force and powers of foresight. So he knows when there's orcs near to his lands. I mean, they're right on the doorstep.
And he knows when you've been naughty, too.
Well, he is kind as Christmas as in the first edition.
He is making a list, and he's checking it twice.
So I'm fine with him showing up and killing the orcs. That's all good. Gandalf, he probably knows where that passage is. He's been to Rivendell before. But yeah, Radagast showing up and then saving them that's where I'm like, okay, why? And this is another moment where they're just stealing a beat from Fellowship of the Ring, because we had, the prologue, we had, and now we have them having to flee a foe on the doorstep of Rivendell. It's exactly the same beat as Frodo and company fleeing the Nazguls. So I'm like, do we need to have them being driven?
But less interesting.
Yeah, because the stakes aren't as high. Did we need?
I mean, they are, because Radagast is high and driving them back into the company.
Yeah, I think that like either I understand why Radagast is there to deliver the Morgul blade to Gandalf, like, for the White Council. But it's just like, I don't know, like he doesn't do anything, and then also like I'm just not like afraid of anyone like dying right there. So I'm just like, yeah, like just go to Rivendell.
Because in
it's okay.
Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo is about to be, turn into a wraith. There's a ticking clock.
Yeah.
And they need to get him there. And the Nazgul are way scarier. So it's like, oh
Nazgul
shit.
Are way scarier.
But
yes.
The orcs, it's like, okay, it's just not as tense. It's not as tense. So I don't think we needed it. But there's, as we'll talk about later, there's a lot of just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess they just threw in an action set piece here for reasons.
Yeah, it's definitely like an action set piece because we're at Rivendell for quite a long time. But it's just like that's when I wrote the note of Oin being dumb, because that's when he slingshots the wolf and it just he slingshots the wolf. It like the rock harmlessly bounces off the warg, and then he's like, like he gives this just look of utter horror, like he thought that was gonna work. Like
bless his heart.
He's my favorite. He is my favorite because he's so dumb, and I think I look like him a little bit.
Because like you just saw that it took Feely shooting the warg with an arrow. It falls down. The orc gets up. They have to stab him 3 times. They have to stab the wolf 4 times. It screams. It alerts everybody else in the vicinity. And Oin's like, "Caca, get him, slingshot, bro. What are we doing here,
Do we think
Oin?"
that this was like a gift given to him by some other dwarf, and he played a joke, and he's like, "This is a magic slingshot," and so he thinks that it's like, "Oh, I got this incredible weapon," and every time it doesn't work, he's like,
"No, Gandalf told
"Oh,
him."
maybe that's it."
Gandalf's like, "It's so good that you're on this trip," because because Gandalf's also the idiot that thinks Hobbit will be good on this journey.
Well, it's like have you guys seen that video? You guys know who Hasbulla is?
No.
No, never mind.
That name is familiar, but
yeah, don't worry about it. We'll cut that out.
No, I'm not going to cut it out. You can explain it if you want.
It's hard to explain, but there's just like a video that's going around where like he's getting hyped up by his friends, and like anyone enter the text of like, oh, when you see someone across the bar that you're attracted to and your friends are hyping you up and they give him like fist bumps. It's like Thorin and Balin giving Oin the slingshot, like, yeah, go get him, man, go get him. But I think I want to say that might have been like his like character defining thing, like his dwarf defining thing, like Beaufort's got the hat, Bomber's the big one, like who is it, Gloin, that can't speak English,
I think it
like
Biffer
his head or something
is
like
the
that?
one with the axe. Yeah,
Biffer. Okay. And so it's just like everyone has like a character, and I think the slingshot was going to be it, and then like they were just like, no, stop that, no more slingshot, because I'm pretty sure he slingshots a spider. I could be wrong, but I think he slingshots a spider in the second one. Can we talk about Ungoliant for like? Can me and Alex talk about Ungoliant for like 2 seconds?
Yes,
they name drop
when
that.
Radagast is talking to Gandalf, that is a fun deep cut that I like. Yeah.
So, Jess, you've seen Return of the King, right? You know who Shelob is, the spider?
I do, yes.
So Shelob is a descendant of Ungoliant, and Ungoliant is so powerful. Ungoliant is so powerful that the Silmarils, who, like, you know, we talked about them in Rings of Power, the Silmarils that Morgoth stole, Ungoliant drained the Tree of Life from the elves and the Valinor, drank all of that, became so power hungry that Morgoth himself was about to be killed by Ungoliant. And the only thing that saved Morgoth was his cries of pain rang so loud as Ungoliant bore down on him to eat the Silmarils that the Balrogs came and saved him.
Whoa.
Like, Ungoliant is this giant nightmare fuel spider that overpowered the greatest Lord of Darkness in Middle-earth history. And so, like, that's, like, I feel like that's such a Peter Jackson thing for them not to say, oh, the descendants of Shelob or, you know, whatever. Like, the fact that they said Ungoliant, I was like, oh, they said it. It's such a cool, like, it's such a deep cut
and
for
after,
us, like,
after
dorks.
draining the trees of Valinor, she always had this, like, hunger that was unquenchable. And so the way she dies is she consumes herself. She, like, eats herself.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, because no one could beat Ungoliant. Like, no one could defeat her.
That's how it is to be a woman sometimes, let me tell you. Sometimes we gotta eat ourselves.
I've been there, sweetie.
Hello. But so wait, Morgoth ate the Silmarils?
No.
Is that why she needed to eat him?
No, he had the Silmarils. She wanted to eat them for its power and nourishment.
And he was protecting them.
Yeah, he was protecting
Got
them.
it.
Like, he wanted them for himself and didn't want to give them up, and had to have the Balrogs come and save him.
Got it. What a nut.
What a
That
crazy,
old scamp
goofy guy.
Morgoth coming down the stairs. Hey!
I almost died, guys.
Pause for, you know, audience applause when old Morgoth walks in. It's like, you know, when the Southlands, like,
Oh, God.
which I like Rings of Power, but that was
The
possibly the
title
worst decision.
thing?
When, like, what are we
Yeah.
gonna call the title change? Like, that was like the most 90s sitcom thing I've ever seen. So just like I just want to see that, like, with everything about Rings of Power. I think it'd be great.
It was such a bad call. And how does it make it past, like, test audiences, CEOs? Like, who goes, yeah, that's
Maybe
the right
that's-
choice?
Maybe
I
that's
think
why
heavy
Joseph Maule
go ahead, Alex.
left, because after he gave that amazing performance, they then cut to that title change. It was literally right after that shot.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I think, like, Heavy Spoilers had, like, the best idea for it, where it's just like you have the close up of him, Joseph Maue, and then it cuts to black, and then you hear him just whisper,
Yeah.
"Mordor." Like, just like, I was like, that's good. And especially
so much
especially with an
better.
actor like that, you just get chills.
Now I have chills just you saying that.
I know.
I'm mad, and we'll never get it. We'll never get him saying the words.
Is he on
Mordor.
Cameo? Maybe we can get
know.
it there.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he probably would not do that, and he's probably an actor who would never do cameo. He's got serious.
Yeah,
Daniel
he has
Day-Lewis
integrity.
vibes.
How much would Daniel Day-Lewis charge for cameo? What do you guys think? Like $500 for like a minute?
Honestly, probably $20
Think so? And
because he
then-
doesn't
Sure.
care.
But
He's,
I just
he's in a shack in London or England.
He probably doesn't
cobbling
have
shoes.
a
He doesn't
device to
care.
record a cameo on.
That's
Yeah.
also like
that's true.
He,
Like, hey,
he has a
I got your
rotary
cameo
phone.
right here.
That's all he has.
Yeah.
He will call you on a landline only. He's kind of like Bill Murray, who will show up to a party if he wants to, and if there are 2 bottles of whiskey, a limo to pick him up, and a place
Yeah.
to sleep.
That's a deal right there. That's a good writer.
It's a good writer, and it's on his website. I don't know if he still does it because he might be getting up there, but that is on his website. You can you can request him to come to your wedding if you have
Even
those
like
things
and no
ordered.
payment, just those things.
You
Oh,
won't
gotcha.
know if he'll come.
I see.
But you can request him.
Oh my God, the thousands of emails that website must have.
It's incredible. It's brilliant though, because he will go. He will do it. Like some things, he's like, "Oh, that sounds cool. I'll go." Who doesn't want Bill Murray traipsing up to your bar mitzvah and be like, "Hey, kid, thank your
And
parents
the kid
for
would be
getting
like,
me some
who are you?
whiskey."
Yeah. Exactly.
Who's this old creepy man?
Even though this is a Caddyshack themed bar mitzvah, he has no idea who that is. He's just too old.
Caddyshack theme bar mitzvah. That'd be amazing.
I'm all right. Well, so they fall into Rivendell. It's the stupidest but beautiful reveal. It makes sense because we're seeing it on a side we've never seen.
And Thorin is just like, "Where are we
before.
going?" And Gandalf's like, "You'll see."
And maybe that's where they all exited when they went from the Fellowship of the Rings. Who knows? We don't know. Maybe the
we just woke up in Rivendell.
Yeah, who knows? We don't. Well, I mean, we do see the river that likely Arwen carries Frodo over when we see the first establishing shot of Rivendell. So we're looking at Rivendell and we're seeing the entrance to the left of the screen, and to the bottom left is the river. I was looking for that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look at a map, but I do have the Atlas of Middle-earth. I'm not sure if the river Bruinen, which is the river they cross, is actually in the valley, or it's just kind of like the border of their lands. So I don't know if that scene we get in the movie with Arwen, she's not like in the hidden valley yet. It's just sort of like, this is where Elrond's power extends to. And so that's why she can, or in the books, Glorfindel can call the waters upon the Nazgul. So
that makes sense. Unlike the rest of this movie, which we will talk about next week. What's your takeaway today, Ben, as being our guest today? Is there anything you want to leave our audience with to think about, like maybe your thoughts for next week, or give them like a surprise, or I don't know.
I think we nitpick this movie a little much, but I really do love this first entry. Like, I think, the more you watch something, the more you can like, pick out its flaws and stuff like that. But I really think this is like such a good entry for the first of the trilogy. There's like, you really do fall in love with Martin Freeman, and I think with so many characters, like, losing Boromir is so huge. Like, you fall in love with Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin and Aragorn. You fall in love with the entire Fellowship, and not to mention, Éomer and Éowyn and Theoden, and you hate Denethor.
Totally.
Yeah. Just like, you fall in love with so many of those characters. So introducing so many new ones is a tough thing, especially when you have a company of 13 dwarves. Probably the race we spend the least time with in Lord of the Rings. Like, we go to 2 elvish kingdoms, we go to 2 kingdoms of men, we go to 1 dead, empty Moria that, is filled with goblins. We never see any dwarves besides Gimli and, in profile, like the 2 other dwarves, when they walk into Rivendell, they just show them. They never have any lines. So it is a tough thing that they're doing, and I think they do a good job of establishing the story of this, the background of this, the bigger scope, which, I don't think we needed to do, but if they were going to do it, they did a good job of establishing everything else that is going on around this journey to the Lonely Mountain. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, any parting thoughts for...
Yeah, I would say I agree with Ben. I think we nitpicked, but the first half of this movie I enjoyed. We'll get to the second half next week. I'm going to be much more critical of the second half. I think there's good stuff in it. But we'll get to talk about Andy Serkis's performance, but there's also all the stuff that happens in Rivendell, which I'm very much looking forward to discussing. Christopher Lee's return, Kate Blanchett's return. So,
Christopher Lee, by the way, aged well, and
Ian McKellen
looking really tired. Ian McKellen looks real tired, and I think Christopher Lee is like, see, you shouldn't have cut me out episode of the third one.
Yeah. Oh, he was pissed about that.
He was so pissed.
Didn't they like not make up until this movie?
They must have before, because he came back. But I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that conversation between him and Peter.
Sure.
Jeez.
Well,
the infamous story of like Grima being stabbed on the tower, because like I think it's rumored that like James Bond is written because of Christopher Lee. Like, Ian Fleming and Christopher Lee were like in the British Secret Service together, or MI5 or what,
What?
Yeah, and so like there's in Return of the King, in the extended edition, when Grima stabs Saruman in the back,
right?
Like, Peter's like, oh, and then you scream real loud and like, you die, and he's like, Peter, I don't think you've ever stabbed anyone before. When you stab someone in the lung, they have no air, and so they can't scream. And Peter's like, I didn't ask any follow-up questions to that. I just let him make that choice on set. So, like, Christopher Lee has seen and done some things in his life that are, blacklisted on a piece of paper. And so he's an amazing man, and I would never want to have him mad at me for anything.
That sounds like the English mafia a little bit.
Like, I'm glad Peter Jackson is still with us, and Christopher Lee isn't some petty person that will literally murder you, and no one will hear you scream.
Listen, Peter, you cut me out of the trilogy, and do you know what it sounds like when vocal cords are cut?
Yeah, literally. Like, he's a very intimidating person, and I think these were his last films before he passed. But what a life. What a life. We'll talk more about him at a different time. But yeah, what an amazing man.
Exciting. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Ben. Unfortunately, this is the last one we'll ever ask you to be on.
Oh, my gosh. Well, like, just leave me at the peak of this trilogy.
No, we can't wait to have you back next week. We definitely, at the very least, have 5 more episodes to talk about this whole franchise, and I'm excited. Alex, tell them the many different places. Well, actually, Ben, tell them where they can find you if you want them to. You're a Twitch streamer. Twitch
streamer. Just everywhere at the Ben Goddard. Twitch, Twitter for now. We'll see what happens with that. Hive, I guess. That's a new one that people are seeming to flock to. Instagram and TikTok, everywhere at the Ben Goddard.
Word. Alex, what are different ways people can engage with us?
They can find us on Twitter at Pod of the Rings. They can go to Instagram at POTR Pod. If you want to support the show, you can subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Pod of the Rings. You can email us at podcastoftherings@gmail.com, or you can just find all the stuff at podcastoftherings.com.
Awesome. So I'm going to say one line, and then Ben, you're going to say, and until then, and then Alex will finish us out, right? We didn't even practice this. And I'm going to be like, okay, Ben. Okay, I'm going to do it right now. All right, Alex, Ben, see you next week.
And until then.
First take.
Nailed it.